Hello, company, and welcome to Show People, the podcast that shines a spotlight on the UK performing arts industry and those dedicated to their craft. Covering the latest news and issues, what to see and do, showcasing theatrical talent, and of course, always trying to inform, educate, and entertain. My name is Andrew Keats. I'm a director and your host. Now, today's guest is a comic, a teacher, a presenter, cabaret artiste, famed for lighting up stages all over the world, and now many might call him the Marmite judge on BBC One's All Together Now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Mr. Paul L. Martin! Welcome to the show, dear.
Thanks very much. Hello.
Hello, Marmite judge. I thought that's fair.
No, it is fair. And just for the record, I love Marmite.
Coming up on today's show, I'll share my latest act hack, and I'm really excited to share a stunning new song written by our guest Paul and composer Jordan Clarke. And of course, I'll be interviewing Paul all about his life, career, and setting him some infamous Show People podcast challenges too. You are listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keats and Paul L. Martin. Happy Halloween, Paul.
I know, I'm just waiting for the doorbell to ring and for a bunch of children to appear.
All right, well, I wonder if we will get trick-or-treaters.
I don't know. Where I live, I've been buying sweets for the last couple of years and nobody ever knocks, so I've given up now.
I mean, I do like the idea, as your personality from some of the TV shows you've done is infamous. I love the idea that if we get trick-or-treaters, that you answer the door and people just run away in fear that they'll get, advice on how to be a better baritone or something.
Yeah. But they'd have to pay me first.
Well, no doubt you've got a fortune for All Together Now.
Oh yeah, the BBC money is legend. Absolutely.
I want to start because what's been lovely is I've obviously met you in the wilderness of the performing arts, and then like lots of other people that have done All Together Now and the other TV shows you've done, I don't think people realise that there is a persona involved when it comes to the work that you're doing. And obviously I'm hoping this podcast we can sort of take away the various layers of the onion and get to know Paul the man rather than just Paulus the judge, which are two different things.
They are, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us what it's like and what that persona means and enables you to do.
Well, when I was on All Together Now as Paulus, I was judging people. That was my job, and that's it. And not judge people and then help them to change or help them to improve or make it better, but just to judge them. And it's weird sitting in a shiny lit up box and sort of just after. I know what it's like as a performer to have just given the performance of your life, hopefully. And for somebody to go, yeah, no, not for me, Carol. Sorry, I do know what that's like. But my job was to judge, and I knew that there was £50,000 for them to win. And the programme makers, they never ever told me what to say. I want to make that very clear. But they did also encourage me to be the panto villain of the show.
Oh, I think that's an unfair judgment. I thought you gave some genuine. Often the critique you gave, I agreed with, but I also acknowledged somebody that has, an entire book's worth of history understanding the cabaret stage. And in fact, I would say of all the artists that I've had on the podcast, the person who knows the most about cabaret as an art form, and I mean cabaret in regards to the politic and in regards to the artistry, rather than just, singing something from Wicked on stage and trying to win, 50 quid at the other palace. Cabaret as an artist. No, but I mean, somebody who understands the heritage of drag, of cabaret and everything that comes from that and storytelling, there was no advice I ever heard that seemed false or not given honestly. Just perhaps the way that it was given was for television.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I say panto villain because literally the first I knew about this persona that was created on Altogether Now was in front of a live studio audience whilst we were recording the first episode. Rob Beckett, the host, it's his job to sort of come around the 100 and talk to us after somebody has sung. And the first contestant has been on. I haven't voted for them, unsurprisingly. and Rob comes and he sits down next to me and he says, I've never spoken to the man before, never met him before, cameras, blaring, lights everywhere, hundreds of people in front of me staring at me. And he says, so, Paulus, you're our panto villain. And it wasn't a question.
Wow.
And and I had to immediately go, am I? Right. Okay.
I'll
fine,
play that.
Do it. Yeah. In my head. And I did.
And I mean, there were also moments within the series, because I did watch it, and I know there are people that are listening. I know Mr. Ben Papworth will no doubt be listening.
On series 2, yeah.
Who was, is a dear friend, and lots of other lovely people. But I mean, that could have gone either way for you. I mean, you could have quite easily have said, no, sorry.
No, I'm not. What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Well, but I was trained as an actor, darling. And if somebody stands in front of you and tells you to do something, you do it. Yes. So I just did.
I mean, that's not just the training of an actor.
No, it's not really. It's got me into a lot of trouble over the years.
But tell me, I mean, knowing the platform that you had, and obviously nobody having any idea of credentials. I mean, in all fairness, it was nice to, at least when I'm talking about you, I know you have credentials.
But the people at home...
There's a couple of people on that stage that I thought, you're giving advice. That's brave.
Yeah, but most people at home don't know who I am from Adam. I mean, I might have been involved in the cabaret world for 30 years, but they don't know that. And it's really funny. You see tweets and people on Facebook saying... It's really funny. People kept... using my job. So I was known as the cabaret host because I work as a compere a lot in the cabaret world. But I do a lot more than that, but I do work a lot as a compere. So cabaret host was the title that came up on the screen when I was being talked to. And people on social media would put it in air quotes like it was like
bitches.
Yeah, like it was not a real thing. As if they were going, oh yeah, Martha, she's a lollipop lady. And it's like, no, it's actually a job.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for 3 decades.
I mean, it is interesting. I mean, certainly I remember when the show first came out, I mean, and what performing arts Twitter is like. The moment anybody goes on television, has anything to do with the industry, it is amazing. We talk about being such a lovely, supportive industry until you go on television and you work in the West End. But it was amazing, because there were some people I saw giving advice, then I sort of raised an eyebrow at home. Didn't tweet about it, of course, but thought, gosh, that's very brave of you to give that advice, Jerry Halliwell. And, it was...
I was giving a talk to a group of ladies the other day, and I was explaining, for those of them that didn't know what Altogether Now was and didn't know who the heck I was explaining that it was a competition and there were 100 judges. I said our head judge was Jerry Halliwell. I said, I don't know how she got there. It was supposed to be all professional singers. That got a good laugh. Sorry, Jerry. She's got enough money. She can cope with me. I keep hitting the microphone.
It's all right, darling. No, but also the funny thing is, but also there were some genuinely really talented people.
Yeah, there are. There's loads in the 100, absolutely. But I didn't get to know very many of them. I remember sitting watching some of Series 1. There was one Saturday, the only Saturday it was on TV in Series 1, when I wasn't on stage gigging somewhere. I was watching it with my husband, and the camera went to 2 of the judges, and they had a big old chat about, who's coming on next? What are we going to see? What are we looking forward to? And I remember saying to my husband, who the fuck are they? I'd never seen those women before in my life. And then I did a gig just last month, actually. I'm the resident host of a cabaret called Luscious Cabaret, which is on the first Friday of every month in Great Portland Street. And one of the acts, I was going backstage, just going around and saying, so when I introduce you, do you want me to say anything in particular? And she said, actually, I've worked with you before. I said,
Oh, darling.
Oh, have you? I'm so sorry. She said, it's all right. We didn't get to know each other. I was a judge on Series 1 of Altogether Now. But there's 100 of us, and the set is really, really big.
I mean, is it a bit terrifying? Because, I believe it's what they call in televisual terms, a shiny floor set.
That's exactly what they call it, yeah.
And from the looks of it, I remember when I used to watch what's it called? University Challenge,
Yes,
for example.
they make it look like the two different what are they called, teams are on top of one another,
Yeah.
and then you realise after a while that that's just the
It's
camera.
the split
No,
screen.
It's actually
a tower block. Yeah.
It's a tower block, and Rob has to run. I mean, that's what Jerry's for. It's just to fill while Rob is running around. That's really what she's there for. And so if you're in the nosebleeds in row A, I was always in row D in both the series I made. You just don't get to meet people. You get to know the person that sits next to you and sits to the other side of you, and maybe the person above you and below you.
I mean, surely if you're on like that top row, I mean, all you really want is oxygen, let alone being able to speak to Rob Beckett.
No, it's tough. A lot of people on the judging panel didn't get spoken to at all. I mean, they made a big fuss when we were making the programme about, we will make sure that Rob comes and speaks to every single one of you during this is in series 1, during the 6 episodes of filming. And you're thinking, well, that's really sweet of you, but they're not going to all end up on telly. And what you have to learn when you're in a situation like that is, and you have to learn it really, really quickly, is a soundbite.
Yeah.
And how long a soundbite is, and then it needs to be pithy, and it needs to be short, and it needs to make sense to someone at home that doesn't necessarily know anything about singing. That's why Rob was a really good choice of host, because if he came to a singing teacher or a singer, it doesn't matter who, and they said, "Oh yeah, but I thought it was a bit pitchy," it was very much in Rob's personality to go, "What's that? What's that? What is that?" So I thought he was a great choice from that point of view. So you just try and go, okay, what is the thing that's going to make sense to everyone at home and is going to be brief enough so that I won't end up on the cutting room floor.
But also, I think being smart enough to know, well, hang on a sec, if I'm doing this, actually, yes, I would quite like to have the airtime because you're an entrepreneur. I mean, you've done a huge, but also being able to go, okay, but what is going to be? Because I always thought the advice was good, but how do I dress this crab, as it were, to make sure that people want to try it? And I always thought you were very smart, and also there were some very touching moments. Again, like I said, no doubt Ben is listening. I mean, I would send WhatsApp messages. I'm doing my own commentary of what I thought of some people's performances, and they must never be shared. Never be shared. But there were moments when there were some really sublime contestants, because there were some really talented people there, where you were clearly very, very moved. And I have to say, particularly with a lot of the younger talent that came on, where I think maybe the Paulus panto villain mask maybe slipped a bit, and we actually saw Paul the man who responds to music in the way that you do in your career.
Well, what I had was a checklist of things that I was looking for in a contestant, and my checklist never changed. It was a long list, and I was a lot tougher than anyone else on the panel. Everybody knows that. And what I expected them to achieve in order to try and win 50 grand was a big ask. But I didn't ever change from one series to the next what I was looking for. So even if I was acerbic sometimes, even if I came across as vile sometimes, everyone got the same. But the people that I voted for, the people that made me stand up, were the ones that made me forget the checklist.
Yeah, exactly.
So, as a director, there's, we want people to remember their lines. We want people to stand in the light, ideally, not wet themselves, not trip over the furniture. But, when you get to work with somebody, or in my case, get to judge somebody that has transcended all of that and has taken you to another place, that you forget all of those worries.
Oh, well,
you're into a different game.
You're totally right. The best example. I mean, I always know the actors that I'll end up casting, because when I look at my little Moleskine book and all the notes that I'm making in an audition, it's where there's a name and nothing written underneath.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That happens to me when I've done auditioning and stuff like that. Yeah.
When you've got someone terrible, you just find yourself writing, just going, I can't, there's nothing I can do.
Anything I can do to stop looking at this person.
As I said at the beginning of the interview, the Paulus persona and Altogether Now is very current and very interesting. But
Well, the show's been cancelled.
oh, and the show's been. I was waiting for you to say. So yes, so it's been not. What did you say to me?
It's not been recommissioned by
not
the BBC.
recommissioned.
So I don't know where Altogether Now the UK version is. It's been sold to lots and lots of different countries because we were the first ones that made it, and Endemol Shine have sold it to loads and loads of other countries. And I don't know. The BBC might change their mind. Somebody might buy the BBC out and put it on again really soon, and I might get a phone call, or they might buy it and not want me involved. I've no idea, but I'm not sitting around waiting for them. I never have done.
Have you come across people like, of course, Craig Revel-Horwood, of course, who does exactly the same thing as you do.
Not exactly.
Not exactly the same. I know who I'd rather spend an evening drinking wine with. That's you, obviously, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. But I mean, have you come across some of the other judges who have, that there is a language between you knowing what you're doing?
Well, what's weird is that Craig, he choreographed me in a show called Beautiful and Damned years ago.
I've got the cast recording of that somewhere.
So
Blimey.
I did the original production at the Yvonne Ono Theatre.
Yvonne Arno. What was the... there's another name for Yvonne Arno. The Evil Arno. That was it.
The Evil Arno.
The Evil
Theatre,
Arno.
yeah. So I did that film when Watt was directing, and Craig Revel-Horwood was choreographing. But Phil, unfortunately, was very, very unavailable. I think he was doing something in China or Japan, and he was really, really busy. So Craig did a lot of stuff with us, and Phil was not around. So I got to know Craig, and I went out and I drank with Craig. And a woman who has known, a woman called Claire Fox, who has known me since I was 3, has been Craig's personal assistant for 10 years. So even though I don't see Craig very often, I hear about how he is from Claire a lot, and we do know each other. And I have Charlestoned with Craig in the last couple of years at Claire's birthday party.
I mean, I'm just going to drop an idea I know producers listen to this. Just imagine Paul and Craig as ugly sisters in a panto. Just imagine. Imagine
me getting paid as much as he does.
Well, I think you should insist. I'm putting that idea out. I'm also available to direct. I mean, it will be the most serious panto you've ever seen. But yeah, I think I'm going to fight for it. Craig Revel-Horwood and Paul L. Martin as the ugly sisters.
Do you know the other
thing?
And
Rob Beckett as Buttons. There we go.
Oh, that's really cute. That's really cute. Yeah.
I mean,
With Jerry Halliwell as the fairy godmother.
I know, she can sell the tickets too. Put her in the box office.
Hi, I'm AJ, or Anna Jane Casey, and my life in show business is crazy. I run marathons, just for the thrill. It's flicking hard, but the challenge is brill. And then, when I collapse through my door, when I've pounded the parks, streets and more, I sit and I soak up my feet while listening to the Show People podcast with the fab Andrew Keats.
Paul L. Martin. I always have to include the L in this. Do you know what I mean?
Most people can't actually even say hello to me when they see me at events without saying my entire name.
Paul L. Martin. I get Andrew Keats out. Or my favourite one is...
And I get called Sir a lot. Sir. And I'm thinking, are you being patronising? I don't understand why.
It's lady, and you well know.
Dame
Paul L. Martin. Well, no, that I'm working with the great Eve Polycarpou, and I always affectionately call her Dame Polycarpou.
Yeah.
But what was glorious is when my stage manager didn't realise I was taking the piss, and the call went out and called everyone miss, and they got Dame Polycarpou, which is the only time you go against the call.
That's lovely.
Paul, let's start at the very beginning.
Yeah. Okay.
Come on, you've got to give me the response.
It's a very good place
You
to
did it
start.
before. Paul L. Martin, where are you from? Where was a young baby Paul L. Martin from, and where did you grow up?
I grew up in a little village near Canterbury in Kent.
Mm-hmm. The Garden of England.
Well, yeah, actually, that's very true. Because if you're from Kent and you're male, you can either be a Kentish man or a man of Kent. This is true, and it depends on which.
I think you're a total Kent.
That's what most people think about me, Andrew. It depends which bit of Kent you're from. So if you're from Orpington or Sidcup, then you're a Kentish man.
Right.
If you're from near Canterbury, where I am, you are a man of Kent. And I've always felt that meant I was more Kentish than the people from Sidcup. So I'm from Kent, and I grew up in a little village called Littlebourne, 4 or 5 miles away from Canterbury. And it was I probably was the only gay in the village in 1975 when I was born, and it was there was a village hall and a post office and a shop and people being normal and Middle Englandy and conservative with a small c, and I was not really. I sort of stood out quite a lot.
Tell me, what did your mum and dad do? Was there any link to show business? I've got a feeling there wasn't.
No, not really. My dad was an electrician. So
Lovely.
When, actually, this is quite sweet. My dad's family had an electrical shop in Canterbury, and they also did electrics. They rewired houses and businesses and stuff like that. And my grandfather, my dad's father, ran it, and my dad and his brother were the and sons part of it. But they had this shop, and the shop would win prizes every Christmas for best window display at Christmas time. And my mum, who was from a much poorer family, she was an army brat, and she was one of 9 children. And she and her sister Nancy, they used to go past every Christmas time and look in the window of Martin and Sons electrical shop, the award-winning window, and they used to sort of, rub the snow away from the window and look in at and my mum tells me that she used to wish she could afford to buy an electric iron for my gran, and she married one of the Anne Sons years later.
Obviously, as I always say, this podcast isn't therapy, but equally, the pain informs the artist we become as much as the joy. What is the tough part of that story? What is the tough part of your parents that perhaps ended up with you coming to London? What was that?
My parents have always been really fantastic about me, about supporting what I want to do. They sit in this rather. It's not a very stereotypical. That my mum and my dad neither were sort of, oh yes, you're going to be a star. We're going to make you famous. Let's go to tap class, etc. And pushy mother. But also they didn't eschew it either. They were supportive. So when I was 13, I wanted to go to a drama club in Surrey called SMAD, if anyone from SMAD is still alive. SMAD, starring music and drama. SMAD. And it was just like on a Thursday for 2 hours every week. And I said to my mum, I've heard about this thing called SMAD and I want to go. And it was the same with tap dancing lessons and anything else. She would say to me, you can go, but you've got to stay for a whole term. If you're doing it, you're doing it. You can't just do it for 1 week and then change your mind. So she instilled in me from a very young age, the idea of committing to something. And my dad was basically the chauffeur. It was just, the poor man just spent his life driving me around and sitting in car parks waiting for me whilst I did 2 hours of dancing or whatever he did for those 2 hours, I don't know. And when I was young and I got my first agent, when I still had hair and I first started coming up to London, he would, be the person that drove me up to London and took me to auditions. And I remember thinking it was really embarrassing. We would be like in one of the holding rooms before you go into an audition room, and people, with clipboards taking everyone's names and stuff like that. And some receptionist would come up to you and go, "Oh, hello, are you here for auditions?" And my dad, who is kind of kooky, would go, "No, I'm not." Of course he's not, because it's for Oliver. And of course he's not. No, I'm not. But my son Paul is, in a very bold voice. And I would be like, oh my God, you're the most embarrassing man in the world. But now I realise that what he was doing was being proud.
I was just going to say that.
Of my existence.
And you didn't realise that at the time. But,
I realised it like a week ago.
Really?
I mean, it's really recently that I realised that that's what he was doing, I think. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was just trying to be more overbearing than me, so he got a job in theatre and could stop being an electrician. I don't know.
What were those first, what are your first memories of encountering the performing arts? What are your early, whether that's performing or indeed watching other people, what were your early influences?
Victoria Wood.
Really?
Yeah, hugely. So As Seen on TV would have been on in 1985, so I was 10.
Yeah.
And but before that, The Muppet Show.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. So I'm just sitting on my knees with my face inches away from the television. And you know how they say, "Oh, don't sit too close to the television because it will make your eyes go funny." And I didn't heed any of that, even though my mother kept telling me to move away from the television. And just the lights were a bit like the ones I ended up in on All Together Now. The big lights that they would come on and dance in.
Oh my God, it is almost the same. Oh my God, the Muppet Show and All Together
That's
Now.
what everyone on social media...
It's time to face it. Oh my God, it really is, isn't it?
Everyone on social media, when All Together Now first appeared, they all said, oh, look, it looks like the Muppet.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, it bloody does. Yeah. Hashtag proud.
Yeah.
And when I was little, I didn't know whether I wanted to be Kermit or Miss Piggy. I'm still not sure which one.
I mean, I've got a few ideas, Paul.
It turns out I ended up being Statler and Waldorf, the miserable gits from the corner.
Well, no, my favourite thing that I've discovered was when I realised that Gonzo was meant to be a fly.
Is he a fly?
He's meant,
Is that what he is?
No, originally he was a fly, but it
'Cause-
never read. So
No.
then they made him an alien. But if you think
Because
about...
there's a movie, I mean, a very bad straight-to-TV movie. I think Whoopi Goldberg's in it. You know, it's really awful. But they explore the fact that he's from outer space. But I
think you'll find it's called Pigs in Space! Which I'm also delighted for the Star Trek fans. The ship from Pigs in Space is used in an episode of Star Trek.
Is it really?
Yeah, it really is.
That is cute.
It's in Star Trek Enterprise
I like that.
for the Star Trek fans out there. But I love that you say Muppets. Funny, Simon Lipkin says a very similar thing.
Does he?
Yeah, he goes. You know, he adores the Muppets.
Yeah, and the idea of watching them backstage as well, almost more than the stuff they did on stage,
Yeah.
and then suddenly everything's okay because there's a show on and there's an audience out there, and you have to make it all right. When in fact the building is burning down behind you, or Piggy is demanding that you marry her, or you know the license for the venue is being taken away from you, and you still have to hold it all together. I mean, that's my career as a compere.
I mean, it is. I was just going to say,
Kermit-like.
Reflecting just on the previous section. I mean, this is basically All Together Now, isn't it? I mean, I will let you work out who Jerry Halliwell would have been. So
She'd like to think she was Miss Piggy.
no, but she's barely a Rizzo. There's the episode
Rizzo the
title.
rat.
Look, I don't care, Jerry. If you're listening, I don't.
No, there wasn't.
care.
When in the early days there was three female Muppets. There was Miss Piggy. There was another pig called Annie Sue. No, lots of people, unless you're a big Muppets fan, you wouldn't know this. But there was another pig, a female pig with curly hair called Annie Sue, and she had some lines. And then there was Janice, the bass player in the band, who went for sure and stuff like that. I mean, if we're gonna choose a job for Jerry to do, I think it's Annie Sue.
Hello, this is Trekkie Monster, all the way from Avenue Q. You are listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keats. Yeah! Who is Andrew Keats? Who the fuck? Huh?
It's time for a Show People podcast, Act Hack. Little things you can do to look after your life and career. Now, anybody knows, if you look at your receipts when you're doing a rehearsal process, just look at how much money adds up when you buy your lunches. Lots of people opt to go to Pret or Tesco's or Waitrose. Don't bother, make yourself a lunchbox. It'll save you an absolute fortune. But have you also noticed, if like me, you like a salad, that if you buy the salads in a bag, you'll end up with a sort of gunge at the bottom and you end up throwing out perfectly good salad after about 3 to 5 days. Simply not good enough. I learned a long time ago, get a great big box of Tupperware, add a couple of layers of kitchen paper towel, layer it with some salad, another couple of layers of kitchen towel, another layer of salad, and finally some more kitchen towel, and your baby salad leaves, rocket, or whatever you're using will last up to 10 to 2 weeks. Stop throwing away those expensive bags of salads and extend their life by 2 or 3 times. That's one of my act hacks. Look after the pennies, and the pounds look after themselves.
Hello, this is Rufus Hound, and you're listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keats. But the real question is, what are you doing while you're listening? Stop touching that, you filthy bastard.
How did your family respond within that village to that news?
I don't think I really know how the village at large responded. My family, when I came out, I fell in love with a guy called Darren, who might hear this, and we're still friends, and it's fine for me to be saying this. But I fell in love with a boy called Darren, who was a few years older than me, and I went round to his for dinner, and I stayed the night, and I felt like I'd been plugged into the elections. It was amazing. I think I was 17, but I was living at home, and I should have been home. I mean, I had a key to the house, but I should have been home, by 10 or 11 or something. I got home at 3 a.m, and someone had left. My big brother was staying, even though he didn't live there, and he'd left the key in the door, so I couldn't get in without waking up the house. And so I was sort of confronted by my mother at 3 a.m. on the doorstep, and having to sort of deal with the fact that I'd been out all night at Darren's house, where I was supposed to just be popping around for a committee meeting.
Oh, it was a committee meeting, was it?
It was a committee meeting for the local amateur dramatic society. That was the ruse of getting me round to his house.
Even before you said that, I sort of predicted that must be what it was. It was either that or the local basket or the basket weaving society, I can imagine.
I didn't even remember it until it was coming out of my mouth. That's what she said. Toby Page is coming to join us.
Toby Page of the Show People podcast.
Hi, Toby Page.
Hi, Toby. Toby, did you? I know.
I've only done this so I can meet Toby Page.
I know, he's more famous
You
than
should
I am.
get badges made.
What,
that
just-
say, I've met Toby Page.
I've met Toby Page of the Show People podcast.
Yeah, he's so sweet. So I can't remember whether we talked about it right then and there at 3 a.m. on the doorstep. We might have done, my mother and I, or it might have been the next day. Anyway, but I said, I've been at Darren's house and I probably said, I love him.
Yes.
and I am gay. And my mum it was weird. I remember her being brusque about it, because my mum is brusque, has always been, brusque about things. And I remember being slightly disappointed that there wasn't balloons and streamers and a fanfare, and maybe I said something like, well, would you rather I hadn't told you? And she said, oh, come off it, I've known since you were 4 years old.
Beautiful.
And we didn't tell. It wasn't a conspiracy to not tell my dad. I mean, they might hear this. They're both alive. But it wasn't a conspiracy to not tell my dad. But there wasn't a point when my dad was sat down and told. We just sort of let him work it out.
Yeah.
And then I've got 2 brothers and a sister, and they're all older than me. And they, I don't know, they variously dealt with it in various ways. But it was different then. It was the early 90s, and we lived in a really small village, and we were already, I were already stuck out like a sore thumb. So coming out wasn't a big deal, because just being me was loud.
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't ever just go, that's what everyone else is wearing. That's how everyone else is speaking. Do that and you'll get through life easier. It will be simpler. I didn't want to be picked on, and I was bullied every day of my life from the age of 8, every single day of my life. I mean, I remember thinking, I will not be picked on today because I'm not going out.
Yeah.
I remember that really clearly from that whole decade. But there was never a point that I was willing to sacrifice who I actually was for the sake of the rest of the village.
Do you think then, Paul, that you have developed some kind of armor, either at that point in your life or younger, which has enabled you to find that acerbic wit which you're able to give out? Because in many ways, it is an armor. Do you know what I mean? You can put out and say, I think this, because then no one's going to come for you.
Yeah.
Is that part of it, or am I reading too much into it?
No, it's absolutely part of my life. Yeah, it's when I work with people as a teacher and a facilitator, people that want to know how to do cabaret or how to be a compere, I speak a lot about the idea of self-deprecation. And we have a whole workshop, not the whole day, but, part of the workshop being around what's your Achilles heel?
Yeah.
If you can you think back to when you were 5, when you were 6, what people in the playground would or might have said about you? And I'm talking to people who are 60, I'm talking to people who are 30, who are, but they all know what it is, because then those things never leave you, really. And I say, if you can take those things and put them in your arsenal and use them as ammunition instead of waiting for them to be thrown at you as a grenade, then self-deprecation can be a very, very powerful in to standing in front of a bunch of strangers and holding your own. And that's what you had to learn. What's what I had to learn to do from a very, very young age. Yeah. And that means that maybe that means you are a little less kind to others sometimes, where you might be more understanding. Maybe it means that you're just a little more off the cuff with your remarks and stuff. And it's not that I've ever wanted to be an unkind person, and it's not that I've ever wanted to be dismissive in any way, but it would be disingenuous of me to not recognise that being gay and growing up in the 80s and 90s in a really small village in the middle of Kent was hard.
Do you think, because you and I both share a love and understanding of gay history, either lived or researched?
Yeah.
You know, we said before we came on mic, you know, we were talking about Polari, for example, which admittedly, as a 33-year-old something, you know, there aren't many 30-year-old somethings who can have a conversation about Polari and our appreciation and understanding of our heritage and the great performers, whether that be in drag, cabaret, musical theatre, television, film, whatever. Do you think there is something to it where we have been told our entire lives that what we are is wrong? So that understanding of the Achilles heel is so ingrained in us from being kids that, of course, that's where our humour comes from. Our humour comes from the understanding of what everybody else tells us is wrong with us. So we either let it kill us or we turn it into a joke.
My dad, over the years, has spoken... You know, he's, typical dad, doesn't say much, but when he does say something, oh, fucking hell, does it hit home? And he's spoken a couple of times over the years about how astonished he has been that I have taken what was seemingly a fault and spun it into gold, essentially. Yeah. And without him saying that to me, and when he first said it, I didn't really understand what he was talking about. I mean, 10 years later, and in mentioning it once again, before I went, oh God, my dad's saying the same thing twice, so that's a thing. And being older and thinking, oh God, he's really onto something there. Yeah. I'm writing a musical at the moment with a very talented man called Jordan Clarke.
Yeah.
He's 23. He's written 8 musicals. I mean, like...
23? How has he found the time?
Don't you masturbate like the rest of us? I mean, 8 musicals. And
all together now.
I'm 44, and we work together, and it's really funny because a lot of people think that I'm his mentor. He's my mentor. He comes to my house and he talks in such... kind terms and in such mentory terms, and we write songs together, and we're creating a show which is around my drag persona. And the story thus far, it's not finished yet, we're still writing it, but the story thus far is one of somebody who at 44, which is what age I am now, is going... If I was born now or growing up now, if I was 15 now and was privy to, the different laws that we have in this country appertaining to gay men and women, to gay men, because,
well, technically it was
Queen
never
Victoria.
I was going to say it wasn't illegal to be a lesbian.
Queen Victoria never recognised lesbians.
I mean,
which is even worse than being put in jail for it.
Also, as a disclaimer from both Paul and I, we are also not saying that life is easier as a lesbian, but legally there were different laws because of the old not showing the ankle.
No, I think it's even worse to be ignored by Queen Victoria than be put in jail by her. And so what this character, which is partly me and partly made up, is exploring is the idea that I'm 45 next year, and maybe I didn't have to be a drag queen. Maybe I didn't have to be a performer. Maybe I didn't have to be brash and loud and sometimes obnoxious to survive.
Yes.
To hold my own. Maybe I could have been an accountant. I might have been a really good accountant. I might have been really good at, being an economist or something else. But very, very, very quickly I realised that to survive, the theatre was the place to go. Because
you would feel safe to talk about, but also, and again, I assume by the work that you've been drawn to, there is that thing of, it's not just about hearing my voice, it's about hearing our voice,
Well,
and how actually it has been indeed the very stages that you've been fortunate to work on, particularly the cabaret scenes. You know, you've worked on stages that have been covered in blood in the past, whether that be from police officers banging down doors, you know, which we now have the honour to be able to enjoy and spend £5 to walk into. But there are plenty of these venues, that, particularly cabaret venues, gay venues, LGBT venues, you know, which were stormed.
Yeah.
You know, and
the irony of being a cabaret performer in a time where there isn't turbulence is that you almost don't even need to exist. You don't need to put on a cabaret, because cabaret, the history of cabaret is such that it's like a pop-up shop. It's the original pop-up shop. You know, it pops up when it is needed. And, you know, if you look back to the early 1900s and a little bit before, cabaret would appear where injustice was occurring, where
hence the Blin cabarets, for example.
Yes,
you know,
yes, absolutely.
Literally.
Where people were saying, I do not agree with this, and this is my platform to say so. And cabaret, I don't know what people listening think cabaret is. If you look up the dictionary definition of cabaret, it says nothing about what's happening on the stage.
Yeah.
It says everything about how the audience are experiencing it. So it says a form of entertainment, and I almost want to put air quotes around entertainment for some of the cabarets I've been in and seen, a form of entertainment which is watched while sitting around tables, drinking, sometimes eating. And I think what's really interesting about that is that it can be anything, but there is a relaxed atmosphere around it. We're not in a theatre. It's not gone dark, and we sit quietly and we wait till the interval, and then we all applaud, and then we have an ice cream, you know, and there's a convention of being quiet. I think it's so interesting, things I've seen online and the things I've been privy to from actors who have got very upset. And I understand why, about people talking in an audience or texting or filming a performance. And I think, oh, babes, come and spend one night in my shoes as a cabaret host or a cabaret singer. You know, I mean, that's our entire careers, is battling against a tray of glasses being dropped in the background, or somebody having a chat, or we try to break the fourth wall in cabaret. That's the whole point of cabaret, is that there is no fourth wall, as opposed to a lot of other art forms, stage art forms. But these days, I can perform to an entire audience who have held up their phone at arm's length between me and them and are filming the show to watch back later. I mean, bugger me, are they watching that back later? Are they really watching it back later? And if they are, do they think it's going to be a better experience than being there in the room? Because what they haven't understood is they're part of it. The whole point of No Fourth Wall is that you're part of the show, and your interaction, your reaction is going to inform what I say, what I do, what I sing next. You know, if I am lucky enough to have, you know, a live pianist, then I'll just change my mind about what song I'm going to do next, because what I might have planned, and I do plan what I'm going to do, that goes out the window because the vibe isn't in the room, and we've created that alchemy together, you know. And if it's backing tracks, then I always, you know, people book me to do a gig and they say, oh, you'll probably need 3 songs, and I'll send them 10, and they're baffled and like, why have you sent me 10 songs? Which ones do you want? I said, I don't know. I can't tell you till the show starts because I haven't met the audience.
Hello, this is Steve First, and you are listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keats. A man so marvellous, he's putting bums on seats. Whether it be parakeets eating halal meats or premier athletes submitting VAT receipts. It's the Show People podcast with Andrew Keats.
What were your early experiences of drag? And tell me about the gigs and the kinds of performances that you do in drag.
Well, my early experiences would have been on TV, would have been watching Hinge and Bracket.
Wonderful.
When I was really, really young. And then years later, watching Lily Savage on TV as well. And then when Lily started being on TV, I started working in the venues that Lily used to work in. Yeah, Lily was very much a influence for me. I started doing drag when I was, I think about 22, maybe. And I was working as a waitress in a cocktail bar. He was. And 2 drag queens came in for lunch, and I started chatting to them. And it turns out that I was working in a bar in Old Compton Street, and they worked around the corner at Madame Jojo's. And I was very excited. I'd just been thrown out of drama school, and I was working as a waitress. And they got me an audition for Madame Jojo's, and the next week, and I became a showgirl. I got the job. I became a showgirl at Madame Jojo's, and I started to work there. And I remember we had this very brief period of rehearsals. There was just 4 of us in the show, and because I was new, I wasn't one of the stars. I was one of the showgirls with my comedy partner Penny Century, and we had to stand at the back. And the stage was really, really small.
Yeah.
I mean, it really only just got 4 men in corsets and fishnets and headdresses on it. So I'm at the back, and we've rehearsed this big routine for Proud Mary, you know, the Tina Turner song. And there was this big whole bit about, you know, big wheel keep on turning. And we're doing this whole big routine where we're spinning around, and we've got big stiff tulle boas. And they've put up a gold slash curtain, which we haven't rehearsed with.
I can see where this is going.
Yeah. So it's there on the first day of our first performance, and we haven't rehearsed with it. And so Proud Mary comes along, and we're there. I'm there at the back, nearest to the gold curtain, doing Proud Mary. And we get to the bit when we're supposed to sort of like spin around and sort of zhuzh our boas around. And basically, I get wrapped up in a slash curtain. That's what happens. And the other thing is that nobody told me, because I was new to drag, was that if you are wearing clip-on earrings and you don't glue them to your ears, when you do a dance routine that involves spinning around, they fling off and hit people in the audience as well. So I worked at Madame Jojo's I worked there for about 6 months, but the pay was terrible, and we weren't treated very well. I remember Toby Anstis used to run a school disco straight afterwards, and we would be ushered out of the dressing room straight away as soon as we could, and be told to fuck off so that Toby Anstis could do his school disco. And there was this one night where it was really, really busy. They'd oversold it. There was too many tickets sold, too many people in the building in Madame Jojo's, and Toby Anstis was clawing, champing at the bit to get in and organise his school disco, and the aircon had broken, and there was no point any of us wearing makeup because it was literally just like streaming off our faces. And the manager at the time, Paris, she was she wasn't ever particularly nice to me, and she'd forced us to go out onto the floor to chat with audience members after we'd done our show. And I was like, well, there's no point. I've got no makeup on my face anymore. Nobody can interact with me because it's too busy. Toby wants to crack on and do his school disco. So I basically had to sit in the dressing room, and I refused to go out and do the meet and greet bit afterwards, because I said it's pointless, it's stupid. So if you interviewed Paris, she will tell you that I was fired. If you interview me, which you are, I will tell you I resigned. And I'm not really sure what the truth is, because I might have had a drink or two. I don't know. But from that, I ran my own cabaret show called Trinities, because my drag name was Trinity Million. And I ran that on the Battersea Barge on a boat on the Thames for years and years.
But it's a very, very important venue,
Yeah,
and a real bloody, a real honour.
Well,
and a landmark venue in our history that you were working at.
Yeah, 30, maybe 40 years where Madame Jojo's was a world famous drag cabaret bar. And I mean, the only thing to compare it to in this country is Funny Girls in Blackpool. And Funny Girls is fantastic. I've been there. It's bigger, it's brasher, it's bolder. I mean, I actually think it's better than Madame Jojo's ever was when I was there. I love Funny Girls. But I was at Jojo's in its last few years as a drag show and a cabaret venue, and sadly, I think it was about 5 years ago now, wasn't it? It lost its license, and it lost its license because some of the bouncers that they employed got too heavy-handed with some baseball bats, and whether that was the reason or just the excuse for it losing its license and never getting it back, that's what happened. And the cabaret world is a small world, and when you lose a venue that's putting on shows on a maybe it's closed on a Monday, but pretty much on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, that means that all of us get less work.
Yeah, but not only that, it's also the end of a haven. And I think that is something
Yeah.
which I've spoken to straight people about, which they often don't consider, which is to have a set of doors where, admittedly, usually there would have been a doorman who made sure you were safe, but to have a set of doors that a chap can walk in, either dressed as a woman or a drag king can walk in, and that sense of horse, or whatever. But to have a place in a country which is not the most liberal country when you think of the entire island.
Yeah.
And you can express your fashion, you can express your sexuality, gender, you can meet others, and it's safe. And even if that place is somewhere that perhaps is not the most the RVT is the perfect example. Good Lord, the RVT is hardly the most glamorous place, but I do think it's probably one of my favourite places in the world because of its history and because
all of these
liberation.
places are tremendously important and very glamorous when the lights are down, and when the lights come up at the end of the night, you go, oh, good Lord, what have I been sitting on? And
but that's usually when I get home, I think that. Yeah.
Who have I been sitting on? And, but actually, you're very clever. You're quite good at your job, actually, because you're making me remember what it was to go there as a punter before.
Yes.
I used to work there and watching the show and going, oh, wow, that's amazing. Those guys up there doing that. And I became one of those guys. And... That's really cool. That's really cool. I don't even think of myself as part of the JoJo's, the era of JoJo's, because I just go, oh yeah, it was already dying by then. Oh no, they weren't bothering by then. But you're part of its legacy. That's not true. I am part of its legacy, and I'm very proud to have been, even though we weren't paid very much, and even though the aircon didn't work.
But Paul, tell me a single job that you and I have ever done where we were paid extremely well. No, there's more to that. I've done all right.
Is that not the punchline?
No, that isn't. But tell me a single job that we've done that artistically or historically has meant something to us, where it's been about the money. Do you know what I mean? It like all of my favourite jobs that I've ever done has been when I felt like I've been doing something that made a difference. It's all the jobs I've been really well paid for that I've probably hated, but been able to go and buy something lovely afterwards.
Yeah,
there's real truth in that. And you know your history.
I think I haven't realised until hindsight kicks in what things have meant to me or possibly other people. I don't know what things mean. Somebody wrote to me on Instagram about 6 months ago, and they were a viewer of All Together Now, and they followed me on Instagram, and they wrote to me and they said, my flatmate hasn't smiled for 2 years, and watching you on All Together Now was made them smile for the first time in 2 years. And then and it turns out that their friend had been very sick and had been very ill, and now they're recovering, and I'm Instagram friends with both of them now, and one of them sells like care packages which are good for the environment, so that you can buy a bamboo toothbrush rather than a plastic toothbrush from them. Her name is Storm in a Teacup, if you want to look them up, and also makeup wipes that are not just disposable ones, but ones that you can put in the washing machine after you've taken your makeup off with. You don't know I didn't know when I was making things. I didn't know when I was working at JoJo's that I was part of a legacy, and I didn't know when I was making All Together Now that I was making people at home happy. I know there were people that hated me and thought I should be murdered, but other people, I made them smile for the first time in 2 years. And when you find that out at a later date, that's humbling.
Hello, this is Francis Raphael. When I'm on my own, pretending he's beside me, I listen to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keats.
It's time for the Show People podcast platform, the part of the show where we like to give some airtime to new writing. And Paul very kindly has sent me this sneak peek of a new musical that he's working on, co-written with Jordan Clarke and lyrics by Paul. It isn't complete, but broadly, it's about someone who is other, that grows up in a department store, sleeping in a drawer of till rolls, until one day they leave home to find their place in the theatre. underground, and after dark, where their otherness will be accepted and even celebrated. 25 years on, with the world having changed and people becoming more accepting, they ask themselves what they could have been if all avenues had been open to them, as they were to the normal kids. Here's Tribe by Paul L. Martin and Jordan Clarke.
Where's my crew? Where's my tribe? Who are my people? Where do I reside? Hopes and dreams are now tropes and memes, calling out, calling out, calling out. Where's my team? Shirts or skins, stripy or spotted, who begins? I'm the leader, won't you follow me? Echo back, echo back, echo back. Even if I knew I belonged to you, how can I approach risking that you'll ghost? Even if I knew of a song for me. What's my sign? What's my rising? Is this the right key? How's my phrasing? For want of making choices, I'm stuck with others' voices calling out, calling out, calling out. Even if I knew my life in review, yes, I'd still do me, and you can just do you. But what the hell is that supposed to be? Round hole, square peg, last straw, last leg, first communion wine. I'll confess what's mine. What is mine? What is mine? My crew, where's my tribe? Who are my people? How do I survive? Hopes and dreams are now tropes and memes, calling
Oh, Paul, well, I am not a lover of Marmite, but I'm certainly a big fan of you and your work. Thank you for sending that in. If you are a writer or composer and you'd like your work shared with the Show People podcast listeners, please just send me an email to info@arian-productions.com.
Hi, this is David Bedella, and you're listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keats.
It's time for Whitley Bay Discs. Paul L. Martin, I am going to strand you on tour in Whitley Bay. You will get a copy of any religious text that you so need, even if that's just for firewood, and the complete works of William Shakespeare. Now, I'm going to ask
When you say religious text, am I allowed to have Marianne Williamson's Return to Love? Is that a
yes,
religious
you can.
Can I have that?
Yes, you can, because I live my life by it.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you what you need to survive is in your album, film, television series, book, play, musical, and luxury item. I'm already terrified about the luxury item. I've got a feeling, and I believe it's available in Clone Zone. So, Paul, what would be the album you would need to survive Whitley Bay?
This is really difficult, but I think I'm going for Joni Mitchell's Blue.
Yeah, it is brilliant, though, isn't it?
Oh, is that really obvious?
No, it's not.
Has everyone said that?
No, they haven't all said that. What would be the film? Now, that's going to be tough, I've got a feeling.
Yeah, can I have three?
No, you can't.
Oh, can I tell you what the top three is and then choose the top one?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so the top three are going to be Beaches.
Oh, come on, Paul.
I know, I'm sorry. It's obvious, isn't it?
It is.
But it's really...
The next one is Sophie's Choice.
No, it's not. It's not. Bette Midler's, just for the young people, Bette Midler is a person, and Beaches was a movie in 1988. It came out, and it's been really important to me for my whole life since I saw it. The other choice is the movie The Colour Purple.
It is. It is extraordinary.
And I think it's really weird that people know Whoopi Goldberg for anything other
than The Colour Purple.
How is that not the only thing the entire world knows?
Oh, I don't know. Guinan from Star Trek The Next Generation is a very important character.
She wore a big hat and popped up once in a while. And then the third choice, and I think it's going to be the ultimate, actually. I think it's going to be my choice, is Truly, Madly, Deeply.
What is lovely about those three choices, though, is they are perfect being on tour films. Do you know what I mean? That you can watch them over and over again.
Yeah.
And they're going to be good for your heart. They're going to be good to laugh. They're going to be...
And
cry.
Yeah.
Like, they're perfect tour films. Okay, TV box set.
Ooh, right now, my husband and I are enjoying
The Crown.
No, because I try very hard to try and find something that doesn't have Olivia Colman in it, which is tough, but I try.
It's very tough in this day and age.
We are watching him for the first time, me for the second time. We're watching Damages.
Ooh.
On All Four, which is a Glenn Close drama with Rose Byrne and lots of other people.
I bet I can make you change your mind in a second.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
If I said the words dinner ladies.
Oh
God, I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but with all the Victoria woodwork you're doing.
All my woodwork, because I didn't do woodwork at school. I did needlepoint. Yes, actually, you see, Damages. I like Glenn Close in Damages. Because she is feisty and mean, and you're not quite sure if she's the angel or the devil most of the time. But actually, Dinner Ladies, when you watch Dinner Ladies, if you haven't watched this, listeners, the more you watch it, it matures. It's like a really good wine or a really good cheese. It gets better and better and better every time you listen to it and watch it, and it's funnier every single time you watch it. So I think, yes, you're absolutely right.
I know.
It is. So Glenn
This
Close
is why I'm the host, not
Glenn
the guest.
Close can do one, and
Fuck off, Glenn
I'm
Close.
going for Dinner Ladies. Yeah, I'm taking Dinner Ladies with me.
And what will be the game?
When I was a kid with my sister, we would play this game at Christmas time, and we would be on a team together, and we would play this game called, I think it was called Taboo.
Yes.
And you had to be in pairs, and you had to sort of explain what something like. So you were given a card, and it might say the Prime Minister on it, and then underneath the title, the Prime Minister, which was the thing that you were trying to get your partner to guess, it had 3 things you weren't allowed to say. So you weren't allowed to say the leader of the party that's in charge, or you weren't allowed to say, certain things. And my sister's called Tiff, and she's 8 years older than me. Sorry, Tiff, not 9 years older than me. And sometimes when I play Taboo with my sister, she can go, oh, and I will know I will know the answer because I'm that close to her.
And what would be the book?
When I joined Gaydar, because I'd read I Capture the Castle, I decided to give my tag name, my code name on there was Captured Castle. So when I met my husband, who I've been with for 13 years now, I was called Captured Castle. And soon after we got together, I encouraged him to read it, even though he wasn't much of a book reader, and he read it. And it's beautiful. It's a very lovely, lovely book.
What would be the play?
Dancing at Lunasa.
It's a fabulous play. Fabulous play.
The first time I saw Dancing at Lunasa, actually the only time I've seen Dancing at Lunasa was when I was still living at home in Kent. So I went to the Marlow Theatre in Canterbury, and Dilly Keane was playing, I think, the big sister.
Really?
In Dancing at Lunasa. And Dilly and I have met since, and we both work in the cabaret circuit, and we're kind of pals these days.
And let's get to musical. What musical would you need? So, imagine you've got a cupboard, you open the cupboard, and you've got a troupe of actors that will perform any musical you wish, and then you can close the cupboard and they disappear.
Mame.
That's so funny. That's so funny you said Dilly Keane, because my idea for years was doing Mame, but with Fascinating Aida.
Oh, they'd
Can
be
you
amazing.
Can you imagine how successful that would be?
Yeah.
But, I mean, come on. Mame.
Yeah.
Fascinating Aida.
I want to see Adele Anderson and Dilly Keane do
Yes!
it. No offence, Tracy and Harriet. I think you're probably doing a marvellous job. I've no idea. I haven't seen it yet. But I when I was a baby drag queen at Madame Jojo's, one of the people who taught me to do what I do in drag was called Crystal Wade.
Yeah.
And he said, right, come on, you're coming around to, he said to me in Penny Century, my comedy partner, he said, you're coming around to my flat before work one day. And he got us horrendously drunk on these green cocktails, knowing full well we had to go into Soho and do a gig. We were in the depths of East London with him. And he put on Auntie Mame, the non-musical version of the film. And we watched that and we drank these hideous cocktails. And I thought it was the most amazing thing that had ever happened to me. I thought it was tremendous. And then I had to go to work and perform in 6-inch heels.
Funny enough, Ben Papworth, who I mentioned earlier, who you obviously did All Together Now, I showed him that wonderful clip of when Cher plays all of the parts in West Side Story. And his...
I haven't seen this.
Right, let's get this podcast over, because that is going on my giant telly over there. Cher plays every role in West Side Story over 12 minutes. Let's get this over and done with so I can show you. It is, in my opinion, the greatest piece of musical theatre ever created. It's going on when we get this done.
I always wanted to have a drag double act with a friend of mine who and we would both play Cher, and we'd be called Cher and Cher alike.
And finally, your luxury item.
Denby. It's
Right.
it's a type of pottery.
All right.
Denby make they make plates and cups and saucers. I feel really stupid now I'm explaining
Sure.
it. It's a brand of crockery, and it's very, very well made, and it's very particular because it gets fired twice. I'm going to get quite nerdy about it any minute now. And I've been to the factory, and I've actually been on the factory tour, and some of the other people on the factory tour were quite angry because I kept asking questions and we couldn't go home earlier. I love it, and my entire house is stuffed full of it. Some of it new new, some of it vintage. If I had one, like just a Denby cup to try and drink tea out of, I don't know where I'd get this tea from on my island, but yeah.
Well, it's Whitley Bay, so there'll probably be some tea bags.
Would there
in
be
the room.
tea?
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, my whole hope of getting Paul on this podcast was that so we could, take him from the Paulus caricature that we know from the show and get to know him as a real man. And no doubt, by that statement, you think less of him. Thank you for listening.
The Denby people don't.
Paul Denby L. Martin.
This is West End producer, and you're listening to the Show People podcast with the sumptuous, the savoury, and the slightly sugary Andrew Keats. Dear.
It's time for everyone's favourite part of the show, Funny 5 Minutes. Now, Paul, you must answer all the questions I'm about to ask you as quickly as possible within 5 minutes, but you are only allowed 3 passes. But remember to use them wisely, as during this time, I'm going to ask you some of the most obscure, random, and frankly outrageous questions you may ever have been asked. Paul L. Martin, let's play Funny 5 Minutes.
Okay, let's do it. I like this music.
I know, jaunty.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Paul, what is the most delicious thing you can cook?
An omelette.
Really?
Yeah, no, I learned when I was really young and I'm really good at it still.
No filling?
No, there will be filling. There would be cheese and mushrooms. Cheese and mushroom omelette. That's the answer.
Is line dancing cool?
No.
No, of course it's not. Terrible thing. Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes.
Oh, good for Halloween. What are the best kind of pants?
Oh, jockstrap.
I knew you were going to say that.
Did you know that?
Yeah, because you've already mentioned jockstrap. Yes. If you were going to order a pizza, what would you order?
A margarita with extra cheese and anchovies.
No, a margarita is not fun.
I'm married to an Italian. I know what I'm talking about. You
Okay,
can't argue this.
You win. What was the last lie you told? Was it about margarita?
I think it was when I said I'd had a really nice time somewhere. Oh, no.
How many pairs of shoes do you own?
27.
Really?
Well, might be 32.
I was going to say, there's more than that.
Yeah.
There's a wardrobe. There's an entire
Well,
world
there's
of
Paul
Narnia.
and there's Paulus. There's the drag and then there's not drag. I'm not sure, really.
Who was your teenage crush?
Oh, Emily Lloyd. You know the film Wish You Were Here?
Yes.
And her dad was Roger Lloyd Pack from Only Fools and Horses. I was in love with Emily Lloyd when I was a kid. And before that, Cheryl Baker from Bugs Fizz.
Star Trek or Star Wars?
I don't know anything about either of them. Victoria Wood, thank you.
Oh my God. What is your favourite sport?
Badminton is the only thing I can hit.
Is it all
with
about the
a
wrist
racket.
action? It's great for a light
I'm
wrist.
utterly pathetic at all sports.
If you were an animal, what would you be?
Cat.
Why?
Laying around doing nothing all day. Come on. Being disdainful to all other human beings.
Would you rather fight 1 horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
100 duck-sized horses.
And the reason for this, Paul?
I just think divide and conquer. You can sort of. I've still got my shuttlecock, and I'm sort of batting a duck over here and kicking another
I
one
love
over
that you've
there.
merged 2 questions as a sort of defence.
Oh yeah, come on.
If you could speak to anyone right now, who would it be?
I would speak to Juliet Stevenson.
Why?
And I would say, were you really crying in that scene in Truly Madly Deeply with your therapist when you were going, I miss him, I miss him, I miss him, I know I shouldn't do this, or was that just acting?
How do you take your tea?
Oh, this is very important. There semi-skimmed milk. It must be in a Denby cup. It must be PG tips.
It's all about the bloody Denby.
And you can't stir my tea with a spoon that's had sugar in it. So if you have sugar, that's fine. But don't stir my tea with a spoon that's had sugar in it, because I will be able to taste the fact that sugar has been on that spoon in the same day before it's been
like a sugar
washed.
bloodhound.
And it has to be strong. It has to look like a mahogany table. The tea. That's quite important. It's going to be sent back otherwise.
Would you like to swim with sharks?
No.
No? Why would you? Terrible, horrible idea.
I wouldn't like to swim with anybody.
Horrible thing.
I'd rather stay in.
Do you believe in aliens?
No.
Well, you went to Mount View. They definitely exist.
Only the people I went to.
To anybody listening that
school
went
with.
to Mount View, I'm sure it's a lovely school now. They've, sorted out student care. Sondheim or Lloyd Webber?
Sondheim.
Obviously. Do you have a teddy bear?
Oh, do you know, I
knew you
would. Well, I bought myself, this is so sad, I bought myself a bear in 1988, so I was about 13 by then. I bought myself a bear because I'd never been bought one. Not that I didn't have stuffed toys, but because I did have stuffed toys, but I didn't have an actual bear. So in Harrods at Christmas time, I bought myself a bear. And recently, a couple of years ago, I put it in my Airbnb property in Margate, and somebody's taken it home with them. They've also taken my baking tray and my feather duster.
Babe, you need to get rid of Airbnb. There is too much hassle. Sadly, that noise tells me that is the end of the show. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I hope you use my little act hack and you can save those salad leaves. Thanks as well to Paul and Jordan for giving us a sneak peek of their new work. But ladies and gentlemen, let me hear you go mad for the one, the only, Mr. Paulus L. Martin! Darling, how can people keep up to date with all that you are up to?
I think the best thing to do is to look for Paulus on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, and I have various handles, but if you search Paulus, that will do it.
And because you've got so many different masterclasses and teaching events you also do for anybody that's interested in cabaret, what's your website address?
PaulLMartin.com.
Don't forget you can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Keats, on Instagram at Mr. Andrew Keats, and you can follow the show at Show People UK on Twitter and Show People Podcast on Instagram. We can see various pictures of what goes on behind the scenes. Also, you can get involved with the Show People Podcast listeners group at facebook.com/Show People Podcast. This podcast is produced by Arian Productions Limited, dedicated to giving opportunities to theatre makers. If you would like to support the show, please get your jazz hands on one of our Show People Podcast mugs by visiting arianproductions.com/shop. Or if you're feeling very generous and fancy paying the electricity bill for a month, just so we can keep the Show People Podcast lights on, visit arian-productions.com/donate. I've been really grateful to all of you who have been leaving us reviews on iTunes. It really helps us. Please just visit Apple Podcasts and give us a lovely 5-star review and some lovely words, and that will affect the magical Apple algorithms and help us reach more listeners. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, show people, just be better. Listeners,
I'm not that interesting.
Listeners, we're absolutely fucked by
We're
now.
rat-assed. I want you to know that it's 11:45.
It's 11:45
and held captive here since 6:30.
Sure, I mean,
Please
anyway.
help me. Please, somebody send help.
Somebody send help, please.
Send an Uber, please.
Paul L. Martin, let's play Funny 5 Minutes.
Okay, let's do it.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, you've not pressed the button on time.
That's the wrong button. Screw my life. That's going to end up in the outtakes.